Namaste, Pranam, Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatva Manusandadhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshinim. O Bhagavad Gita, with which Lord Narayana himself gave enlightenment to Arjuna. The ancient sage Vyasa included it in the Mahabharata. O Goddess, showerer of the nectar-like knowledge of non-dualism contained in your 18 chapters. O my affectionate mother, the destroyer of rebirth, I meditate upon thee. Krishna Vandana. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansa Chanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Son of Vasudeva, the slayer of Kansa and Chanur, extreme delight for Mother Devaki, O Lord Krishna, the supreme teacher of the universe, my salutations to you. So we are reading the Akshara Brahma Yoga, the 8th Adhyaya of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and today we are going to read the 20th Shloka. Having read the 19th Shloka yesterday, and Sri Krishna telling us very categorically in firm words that all the beings at the start of Brahma's day, all the unmanifested beings, whether they like it or not, they come into the manifested form again, and at the end of the day, as the night approaches, again they dissolve, they get back into that main entity, whether they want it or not. In spite of themselves, they have to necessarily, because of their karmas, they have to get into this cycle of transmigration, of being born and being dissolved, again being born, every day and night. That is what the Brahma cycle goes on and on. That bhutagramaha sa evayam bhutva praliyate. Again and again, getting born, coming to existence and getting back into the praliyate, in that stage of dissolving, in that stage of unmanifested form. Ratriya agame vashaha. Ratri agame avashaha. Whether they like it or not, the moment it is night, again they have to get into that unmanifested form. They have to shed off all the bodies and forms and names and get unmanifested. When they are manifested, there is name and form. But the moment that name and form dissolves, they are back into that unmanifested form. Prabhavati ahaha agame. The moment the morning comes, the moment that sun comes up in the Brahmaloka, the day starts, maybe after 4.32 billion years, again they have to take their bodies, start wearing the shirts, pants, and their garments, so to say, and get into that state of having name and form. So this is what is happening day in and day out in the Brahmaloka. So why going for that? Now Sri Krishna tells us about this jivas being manifested and unmanifested. Now what is the real nature of these jivas then? Is it that till they destroy their karmas, till they get rid of all those prarabdha and sanchita karmas, do they have to get to this? Is there no end? Now Sri Krishna says, this manifestation and unmanifestation of the jivas, it is not the reality in fact. they have to, unfortunately, they have to. They are avashaha, it is beyond their control. They have to get into this cycle of transmigration. But Sri Krishna says, Sri Krishna tells us in this 20th shloka about the Akshara nature of this Brahman, which is the ultimate Brahman, the Parama Divya Purusha that he has already told us about. So Sri Krishna says, Paras tasmāt bhāvo anyo vyakto vyaktāt sanātanaḥ yaha sarveṣhu bhūteṣhu naśhyatsu na vinaśhyati. Now see the fun of how these different beings, what is their ultimate reality actually? Fine, they are manifested, they come into manifested form during the day, and again they dissolve back into that unmanifested state at the night. They shed their names and forms and become one with some entity. Now what is that? That Sri Krishna is telling it. Paraha tasmāt. Higher than that. Higher than this manifestation, unmanifestation of the jivatmas. Paraha tasmāt bhāvah anyaha. Higher than this existence. Anyaha, there is another. There is another which is much higher, which is totally different from these coming and going souls, kind of transmigratory souls. Avyaktaha vyaktāt sanātanaḥ. There is much higher of these unmanifested, which are again manifested in the day. There is something much higher than them. Vyaktāt sanātanaḥ. Than these unmanifested, manifested forms, there is one which is much, much superior, and that is eternal, sanātanaḥ. It has no beginning, it has no end. It is in its own sat. It is in its own absolute existence. Yaha saha sarveṣhu bhūteṣhu naśhyatsu na vinaśhyati. Yaha, whose, yaha, saha sarveṣhu, in all that, in all those kind of manifested and unmanifested beings. Sarveṣhu bhūteṣhu, all beings put together. These millions and billions and trillions of beings that are getting into this cycle of transmigration, coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. This person is much superior. And this entity, what Sri Krishna is talking about, yaha saha sarveṣhu bhūteṣhu naśhyatsu na vinaśhyati. For him, it does not perish. There is no vinasha for this person, for this entity that is there, which is much higher than these forms, these individual souls which are taking birth and going. For them there is destruction, and again taking birth, again destruction. But this person, this entity is vinaśhyati. There is no destruction for this person. But beyond this unmanifested, there is yet another unmanifested eternal existence, which does not perish. Even when all these souls, they keep on perishing, come night, they perish, that names and forms, they perish, they vanish, they get destroyed. Again they are unmanifest. Come day, again the name and forms crop up. The bodies are come into existence. They start their play. Towards the night, they have to again shed those names and forms, become unmanifest. But Sri Krishna says there is some entity which is much superior It is also unmanifest, but it is far superior than these destructible unmanifested manifested forms, because that ultimate entity, it is the eternal existence. It is the eternal existence beyond any destruction. It is a vinaśhyati. There is no destruction for that eternally existent unmanifested form, and that now Sri Krishna is going to focus about. He says, forget about all these tidbits of jivas and the jivatmas and coming and going and this nature of the transmigration, this phenomena of transmigration. Go beyond that. There is something which is much, much, much superior. Now, in the existence of things, there are two phases, the relative and the absolute. Whatever is there, everything has got two existences. One is the relative existence. This body as such, this is a relative existence. It is today in this form, in the next birth, maybe next birth of this jivatma, maybe some other form. So this is the relative thing. And there is something which is absolute, which is absolutely unmanifested, eternally existent. Now, for this, Swami Chidbhavananda has given this beautiful example. Water exists in various forms as vapor, steam, mist, fog, snow, ice, and several other forms. Just one entity, water, it can take up so many different forms, isn't it? It can be a vapor, it can be a strong steam, and using that steam, such huge locomotives, they can start moving around. That powerful steam. Or it can, that water, that same H2O, it can take the form of a mist, where we can't even see. There is a fog, that is also water. The ice, that is also water. So, water exists in all these different forms. But again, all these other forms, they are perishable. The steam can, the moment the heat source is shut down, where is that scope for water to boil and form steam? Nothing. It is dependent on something. You take a piece of ice and just keep it on the table. In a few minutes, it starts melting. It loses its form. That manifested form is back into unmanifested then. So likewise, all the forms of water we take, they are all perishable. They are all, they can vanish. But for the true entity of the water, as a liquid which doesn't have any form of its own, which doesn't have any color of its own, which doesn't have any shape of its own, just the plain water. That is the absolute identity of water as a substance. All other forms, they are relative. Whether it is ice, whether it is steam, whether it is mist, whether it is fog, whether it is vapor. So, these varying states of water, therefore, are all relative existences. But the substance as water, as such, persists in the midst of all these modifications. In spite of having all these different forms, the inherent substance, water, that remains as such. And the moment something which has created these forms is taken back, all these various forms, they again regain their own true nature of mere water. Even if it is a vapor, let vapor go and hit some solid portion. What will happen? Once over a period of time, it will condense and again form those original water droplets. The ice will melt. The fog will vanish. The snow will melt. And this is all these manifested forms, they will go back into that original substance, water as such. Similar to this, Brahman, the creator and his creation have their relative existence as well as absolute existence. That ultimate Paramadivya Purusha also has this kind of the relative existence in the form of creation. What we are experiencing this entire creation of the Lord. This earth is part of the creation. We are living on this earth. We are part of this creation. Then there are stars and moons and galaxies and whatnot. All this universe is, we are seeing it, no? We are experiencing every day in and day out. We are experiencing our association with this creation. Now it is all relative. Like the ice and the vapor and the steam and the fog and the mist, the relative forms of water. What is the real nature? The real nature is nothing but that formless, that shapeless, that colorless, that odorless, that water, plain, pure water. So that is what the nature of the Brahman is. Brahman is also existing as absolute and relative. When it is relative, we are into it. And when it is absolute, that Paramadivya Purusha that Sri Krishna has talked about, that Purusha beyond Purusha, from whom the Prakriti has manifested, that Paramadivya Purusha is the absolute one. Similar to this, the Brahman, the creator and his creation have their relative existence and absolute existence too. Their perishing nature is their relative existence. So perishing is come day, come night, and the manifested forms, they dissolve, they get back into that unmanifestation. That is the relative nature of the Brahman. To enter into the unmanifested state, even as the vapor does, is one phase of the phenomenal universe. To become manifest to the senses and intellect is its another phase. And then this world becomes, we are able to perceive this through the senses. We get in this knowledge, and that again is the relative phase. The manifest state and the unmanifest state of the universe and its being come within this relative existence. This innumerable births and deaths, and again, getting into this cycle of birth and death, into the cycle of transmigration, it all comes into the relative existence of the Brahman. But there is an absolute existence, which is eternal and which is truly unmanifest. That unmanifest is not like this unmanifest Jivatmans, who today they are not, tomorrow they are. Today we don't see a body. Tomorrow a child takes birth and the life springs, the life force, it comes alive in that form. Then we give the name, and then that's how this relative existence starts. But Sri Krishna says that there is one eternally existent unmanifest, which is all these tiny unmanifested forms, they are all part of it. They just come back from that. They come out of it. They get projected from it. They are, although unmanifest, they get manifested, again unmanifested, again manifested. It is a wonderful phenomenon. But there is one entity, Sri Krishna says, that is the Akshara Brahma. That is the Akshaya Brahma. That is the one entity which is which cannot get into all these kind of phenomenal existences. It is in its own glory. It is the Satchit Ananda. It is in its own bliss. It has its own absolute existence. It has its own knowledge. The existence knowledge, bliss, absolute. That is what is termed as the term given to the Brahman as the entity which is unmanifested. So Sri Krishna says there is something much beyond this, ordinary coming and going unmanifested jivas. There is one which is much superior, which is eternal, and which doesn't have to bother about this taking birth and dying in the night and again in the morning taking birth, coming into existence. It doesn't have that kind of trouble to take. And for that unmanifest, there is no vasha avashaha. It is in its own glory. It is eternally existent. So, Sri Krishna has told us about this nature of the imperishable. And in the next shloka, that 21st shloka that we will be reading next, he again is going to tell us how do these perishable beings, these manifested, unmanifested things, what is their relationship with the imperishable, with the Akshara, Brahman? And that will be our next reading. Till then, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Sri Ramakrishna. Jai Thakur. Jai Ma. Jai Swamiji.